We are here to bring you everything and anything surrounding Porsche. I'm Mike.
I'm Aaron.
And this is P-Car Talk.
This is Mike.
This is Aaron.
And this is P-Car Talk. And we are back at Aaron's house.
Once again.
Knocking this out. Off location. We'll be back in the studio hopefully soon. And before we get started, once again, our sponsor, Rennsport Adventures. What do they do? Like, give us cliff notes, because we kind of talked about it on the last one.
Yeah, so it's just a seamless bucket list trip adventure of sorts. So anything. So if you're going to Europe, that's pretty much where it's covered. And you want to see the Porsche Museum, BMW Museum, Audi Museum. If you're into all that stuff, we can make it just Porsche centric. We can go into Austria. We can do Munich. I mean, it's all those things.
Yeah,
that can be
Porsche
done.
Museum, everything. If you want to go to the Mercedes Museum, whatever you want to do, BMW Museum, anything like that. You want to just go hang out, eat some schnitzel, do whatever you want to do.
Castle, sightsee.
Take your other half shopping. You want to play some golf. You can do a little bit of everything, right, with these guys. So definitely check their website out, rennsportadventures.com, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. And, they got slideshows and pictures and everything that they do, and then they have packages of what they do. So definitely support those guys because they support us. So on to the show. Farron reminder. What Farron is, obviously, is on Car Drive. August. It's happening still. We've talked about it before. I've been asked, which car am I going to take on Farron?
Oh, yeah. What car are you going to take?
Ooh, I don't know yet.
I know what car you're going to take.
What car am I going to take?
The one with air conditioning because it's hot.
Because it's going to be summertime? That's possible. It really depends. I was actually considering bringing the air-cooled car, but I'm not sure.
Do it.
Because I know we're going to be in that area again in October.
You don't think there's a tire center there so you can swap them out?
We're going to be halfway in Jacksonville. Hey, Jacksonville, get ready for a tire swap. Mike's coming in hot. No, that'll get the toe and the camber will get settled before then. So I'm trying to debate that. I want to bring my 964 to that drive in August. But on the flip side of that, if Luftgekühlt still happens in November, obviously I'm still going to be driving that car up the East Coast again in November. So I'm wondering if I'll save that trip for that car, meaning, up the mountain range and save it for Luftgekühlt and just save the 964 for that, because also it'll be nice too because it'll be cooler out.
I mean, that's the perfect conditions for both cars.
Exactly. So probably you're right with taking the 996 to Farron in August. But again, we're going to be back up the East Coast in the mountain range again in October because we're driving up for Petit Le Mans. So
and not camping this time.
No.
Oh man, I'm looking forward to it.
I know we got a nice place that we're staying at. So we're going to be up in that way 3 times in the latter part of this basically summer and year. And obviously only have 2 cars, 2 911s, I should say. So one of them is going to make the trip more than once.
I need a third one, so you can just make you.
Yeah, right. Then I get real pretentious, and I'm going to bring another one in. So one of the cars is going to make the trip twice. Let's put it that way. I haven't decided which one is.
Well, if it gets cooler, I mean, you got to take the air-cooled car up there.
Clearly, a no-brainer is happening in November. It's not like I'm going to bring the 996 to Luftgekühlt. I'm taking the air-cooled car to Luftgekühlt, especially if they still do that drive, so I can join in the drive as well. Yeah. We still got to get you in an air-cooled car by then.
That's true.
So you have till November to make that happen. So
everybody knows I'm on the clock.
Exactly. I'm going to keep pressing you till you do it. 996 probably in the summer, and then it'll be a coin toss for which car ends up going to Petit Le Mans in October. So we'll have to see.
And the only Le Mans happening this year.
Yeah, right. That's kind of weird to say, isn't it? The only Le Mans that's actually happening. So we'll see. Enough about Farron. You can find that on our website at pcartalk.com. Under the membership, you will get all the information once that happens. It is locked out to the general populace for obvious reasons.
Yep.
But let's move on. Lockdown and how people have thought about Porsche pricing would decline, and it hasn't. Surprised by this?
I don't know. I mean, I guess you would think that it might, but if you look a little deeper, then it's like a luxury item, so it really doesn't have to. Mm-hmm. That's where I think I would look at that. I mean, just because of the economy is not at its peak or where it was.
Yeah.
I would say that if you look at it as a luxury good of sorts.
Yeah.
But I think it doesn't have any reason to devalue. because you're not losing anything until you sell it. So
Agreed. And I feel, and I've talked to a couple experts offline and I call them experts because their living is buying and selling Porsches.
yeah,
And a lot of them has said, and I totally agree with them because I've done some research to support what they were saying.
these experts live in Miami.
No.
Okay.
These guys actually are abroad. And they've been doing it for decades. I mean, like 30, 40 years. And, the air-cooled market has stabilized. What I mean by that is it's really not going up and it's not going down. It's kind of stagnant. So prices are what they are. And they're the same prices they were pre-COVID, during COVID. So, and I think they'll be the same post-COVID. But the interesting part about what some of them had to say, a couple that I talked to with, they feel that actually pricing in general, once things start to come back online, may actually go up some because
another rise in it.
Yeah, not like a spike or anything like that crazy, but just a little bit of an uptick. And the reason why behind that is all the people that didn't lose employment that have, making a healthy living are still employed and they haven't been spending any money.
Yeah,
and what that means, yeah, exactly. So they haven't been on any vacations. They haven't been spending any money. They probably haven't been purchasing any vehicles. So all that bottled up cash has just kind of been accruing.
Yeah.
Maybe they've, bought some in the stock market when it was low and now they've actually made money because the stock market's rebounded. So they're actually predicting, later summer, once things start to kind of like ripple out a little bit, that there might be like some surprisingly buying frenzies happening with classic cars and some water pumper ones that are limited numbers, obviously.
Yeah. Like Turbo S roof cars.
Yeah, no. So yeah, I think that's pretty interesting. I would have anticipated, I think, as most of the general populace as a whole probably would have thought cars would have taken a tank just because everybody's like, okay, let's just offload. But that case of that is it just shows you that maybe the market adjustment on all these air-cooled cars when they did end up going up,
might have been the right way.
Yeah, what needed to happen in sense. I know a lot of old timers are like, that's ridiculous. They should never cost that much. And it's easy to say that because if you look at the housing market, for example, is an easy way. Like you turn back the clock to the 90s and you could have bought a healthy home for $130,000 back then.
Oh yeah.
A very, very healthy home. In the 50s and the 60s and stuff, houses were costing $50,000, $60,000.
Yeah.
So now to get a decent home, you're spending $450,000, $500,000 for a decent home in any type of metropolitan city, and that's not even like a jazzed up home. That's just run of the mill almost. So you think about market adjustment on cars like that, where I think they were undervalued for a very, very long time, and meaning should they be the price that they are? I don't know. That's debatable, but I think they made the proper market adjustment because I don't think a vintage 911 should be $14,000 or $15,000.
What I'm saying, it shows it too, because if it had, it would ebb and flow if it didn't make the right correction, and it's kind of stabilized.
Exactly. Everybody keeps talking about this mythical bubble. Like, when's the bubble going to pop? When's the bubble going to pop? Here's a news flash. It's not going to pop. There's no bubble to pop. The market adjustment has happened. Now, has it softened a little bit on some cars? Yeah, of course. High mileage cars are always going to be softer than a blue chip car. Like, you can always go find a 150,000 mile SC for $29,000. Of course, you're going to be able to find that because it's going to need some help. It's going to need some work. It's going to need some engine refreshing. It might need head studs. It might need a top end rebuild. Of course, it's priced accordingly. But are you going to be able to go find that same SC? It has maybe 10,000 miles on it for $29,000? Hell no. You're going to probably pay $59,000 to $79,000, depending on what the spec of the car is, what the color of the car is. So blue chip cars always will carry the weight. It doesn't matter. Now you can always go find, used up examples, essentially driver quality or enthusiast quality cars. They're always going to be reasonably priced. There are some outliers out there where people think that their car is worth a lot more than it is, and those cars don't sell, and they just sit there. And
I've seen it.
Yep. If you're one of those people, that's what happens. Do you feel there's, and we've talked about this a little bit on past, and full disclaimer on this, not because I own a 996 now, but we've talked about it, many, many times before. And do you feel even in this market, are there certain cars that are still going up? I think 996s are still kind of going up even in this like COVID hold market, because I feel.
I don't think they really went up like in the past. So I think it's there. I guess they're almost due for a little bit of a bump.
Yeah.
But I definitely am seeing, I mean, at least on social media, I'm seeing a lot more 996s out there.
Yeah, and I speak specifically about, remember that car we talked about on BAT that sold for like $32,000,
Yeah.
996 guards red and arrow arrow kit on it.
Practically Sean's car.
Yeah, so that's pretty strong money for that car when that car could have been had just, I mean, not that long ago, for a few years ago, for probably in the teens.
Yeah.
And then for it to be $32,000.
Everybody in the world's finally realizing they're a 911.
I think it's more, I think the best way, it's just smart money.
Okay.
In my personal opinion. And what I mean by that is it goes back to why people buy houses in the suburbs, right? You get more house for your money. I don't think you want to live in the suburbs, especially where all the cool restaurants are in the city, all the nightlife's in the city, especially if you don't have a family. It's not very appealing to go live in the suburbs. But at the end of the day, you're getting a lot of house and you're getting a lot of value for your money, and you have a place to live. And if, that's not where you're going to be at forever, at least you're going to get your money back. And I almost kind of use that comparison back to the 996. Maybe that's not where your end goal wants to be. Maybe you're a guy who wants to end up in an air-cooled car, but you want to drive a 911. So you end up buying a $25,000 996. No, and you buy right, and you buy a good spec, and you're not going to lose money on it. So when you are maybe ready to step up to an air-cooled car, you can turn around and sell that car for $25,000 3-4 years later while you drove a 911 the whole time.
Yeah. 911's the way to go.
Yeah. So I think that's the theory behind why a lot of this is happening.
That was kind of my outlook when I was hunting both at first. I was like, well, maybe I'll just try it out and get a 996 and see how I like the Porsche 911 life.
Yeah. But you didn't get a 996. You're just like, I can't do it. The headlights.
I don't know. I mean, yeah. No, some of it. A lot of it. 100% of it.
You were afraid to be in that camp, didn't you? You can be honest, be transparent.
That's true. I didn't want to be in the camp. I didn't want to pay. I felt like at that time I was was paying a lot for an air-cooled car. Mm-hmm. And then that.
So how,
I just
timeline-wise, how long ago was that?
2016, 17.
Okay. So that's about the time frame when you bought your 997, right? So you were on the fence between 996 or 997, right?
Yep.
Price-wise, were you looking around the same price, or was there a big price difference? Was it purely aesthetics that really made you change?
Price-wise, it was about even. It was definitely, I mean, I really wanted, I always liked the 997 body style more if I was going to get a water-cooled car.
Yeah, understandable.
That's kind of why I was just looking at kind of like 997 for, if I could afford the 997, that's where I was going. Mm-hmm. But if I found a good, I almost bought a 996 when I was in Germany, but I'm glad I didn't. It was super high miles and a C4S.
Okay.
And silver, like you never see those anymore.
Okay, so let's come to present date, 4 years now.
Yep.
So let's run with this a little bit. How do you feel about the 996 aesthetically now? Total transparency.
I think it's kind of growing on me a little bit now. I'm seeing there's a little bit of a classic line on it that I might drive it, but there's a very big might.
Yeah, still doesn't do it for you.
Still, and then once I not only.
What about turbo or GT3 car? Would you in a 996 variant?
I'd like to drive GT3 to know that feeling. Turbo would probably be enough, but still, once I go from outside the car to inside the car, then it's all the interior just hasn't aged well for me. It's not like it's like, whoa, this is a classic 911, because it's not. It's like this was made in the 90s.
Understandable.
Early 2000s. I don't know. There's just something about I just don't feel. I don't know that it aged well. In some aspects.
Yeah, I think there's some accuracy to that. I think it really depends on the spec that you got. If you got the basement spec, I totally agree with you.
I would need like carbon fiber. The interior would have to be all black because I feel like
the ones that didn't have the leather dash. Like I think that's a big factor too.
It would have to be any color besides silver.
So he doesn't like my car. That's basically what he's saying.
Let's see. Anything else about Mike's car? No roof part. No, it's just a couple of those things.
I mean I hear where you're coming from, and I respect your opinion on that. And I know there's a lot of people in that camp as well with the whole headlight situation. And you asked me a few years ago when I was shopping, and I didn't want one. and I couldn't get over the headlight situation. I really did. It was kind of a hang up for me. But then I drove a couple of them, and that small, I still didn't want one. That small C got planted, but it was kind of like, yeah, they're not as bad as I thought they were. And, you know, that's kind of my opinion was on it. That was it. It was like, I still don't want one, but yeah, they're not that bad. And then as time and I matured a little bit more, obviously I had an air-cooled car, and I started driving, and then I drove Chad's turbo.
Yeah, I mean, Chad's turbo does make the difference as far as drivability. I really like the way the car drives. It's awesome.
And it's one of those things where it really helped push me to the edge of getting a 996 because, let's face it, at the end of the day, you know, I'm not wealthy by any means. I thought it was the most bang for the buck, and I wasn't hunting the roof Turbo S like you know me. Like you know the inside circle, what I was really hunting. I was just hunting a turbo. I wasn't hunting a Turbo S.
Yep.
I just wanted actually a modded turbo because I didn't want to do the modifications. I really, really didn't want to screw with any of that stuff. I just kind of wanted a motorsport style turbo already set up.
Which is, I mean, that's pretty easy to find, surprisingly. There's a lot of those out there.
Exactly. So I'm thankful for the car that I ended up with, you know, due to like RMC, and I'm thankful it's a Turbo S, and I'm thankful it's an 05. It really just kind of dominoed
all those things.
Yeah, it just kind of dominoed. Like we've been over it already, you know, obviously it's hand built, all those things. It's the last of the production. And it wasn't, I didn't start out that way. It just kind of happened. I wasn't like, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. It was one of those things that's like, well, here are the things that I do want. Anything else kind of falls into place, I'm okay with.
Yeah, I think that's kind of how I was when I was even looking at the air-cooled stuff to comparatively to the 996 or 997 was power-wise, because I was new to the game, besides having the 944. I mean, power-wise, I was like, well, I get more power. I get air conditioner that works.
Yeah.
It's modern in the other ways, like the heated seats and stuff. I don't know. I just thought more, and it would be less headache in the end, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm not having to do a top-end rebuild as soon as I get it. That may not always be the case, but still one of those things.
And a lot of guys that I know that went water-cooled first kind of have that same dilemma too, and to support what you're saying. And it's not about speed, but I know where a lot of them are coming for. It goes back to like bang for buck, right? For example, you can go get a well-sorted 997 Carrera S manual in really good shape for equal money as almost an air-cooled car that's kind of clapped out. Yeah. So you're looking at it like from a person who's a car enthusiast, but maybe not a Porsche enthusiast, just a car enthusiast. They're like, I want a Porsche, but this car has X amount of horsepower. It's in this kind of condition, has AC. And then I'm going to go buy this clapped out thing. I can see where the disparity is in a lot of challenges for a lot of people to say that it makes no sense for me to buy that car.
Apple's an oranges thing, but I mean,
it is.
But over time, I'm sure that I would love the air cooled just.
I mean, guys like us that are deep in the wormhole, we get it. Like it's about driving the slow car fast. I totally get that, and I never would get rid of that 964 because of that. I still, believe it or not, rather own the 96. If I had to pick one, it's still the 964. I like the 996 Turbo a lot. It's a very fun car. And surprisingly enough, the more I drive it, the more I like it. It's a big car compared to the 964, but as far as in the Porsche lineup, it's not that big of a car compared to the newer cars. So it's interesting because it feels nimble. It's very quick. It's very Porsche-esque still. There's very little nannies on the 996 Turbo, which one of the reasons why I wanted to stay within that generation. It was actually the reason why I didn't step up to a 997 because I didn't want the nannies of the 997. I kind of wanted the rawness of the 996 still. And those things that you described earlier with the, I guess maybe the dated interior type look, that I actually looked forward to that, to be honest with you, on the flip side, not because I'm owning it and I'm trying to stand up for it. I really
love it.
I liked how unmodern it was, is the best way I can describe it.
I get it. So you like
because it was, it kind of made me feel closer to the 964 than I would have in the 997, because the 997 was such a leap forward compared to the 996. Now the 996 as a whole was a leap forward, but I'm just talking about the two cars comparison. Those cars leaping forward is totally different. The 997 is just so much more technologically based than the 996.
And now seeing, like, now that we do the reviews on the other cars, like the newer stuff, getting into my 997, my dinosaur.
It is. It is. You know, I appreciate you sharing that. I think it's an interesting perspective because we don't get to hear how you feel about a lot of those things a lot. And I think it's interesting. So you think you would ever own a 996 turbo or a 996 GT3 variant or any of those kind of things?
I don't know. I mean, the turbo's appealing. Like having it exactly set up like Jad's, maybe not a stage 3 clutch.
Because I remember you saying this before when everybody was in turbo fever and everybody buying turbos. You're like, I need a turbo. I remember you saying that.
I like the idea. I think I like the idea of turbo power. I don't know that I like the body style of the 996. I like, actually, I think it looks better in the turbo just because it's wider, and the wider it is, the more it reminds me of the GT1.
Yeah.
And then those two things link in my brain, and that makes sense. GT3, I'm sure will be fun, but I think it might be slow in some aspects. I don't mean.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
No, I don't know. I would
The
probably
lack
go,
of torque there.
It'd be cool to have a GT car. I don't know. I'd probably go GT car for the fun, but then I'd really want the turbo just for the power aspect.
I think geographically too, we're more turbo centric down here, right?
Yeah.
Where we're at, because we have the long straights.
Alligator Alley.
Yeah, we have long straightaways, long bridges. To be fair, very few twisty roads. We've been able to find some when we go driving, but
Yeah, seldom.
All in all, it's more of kind of, and it's been called this by many other people, not just myself, turbo country down here, because it really is. You got these long roads that you can just go blast away, and the turbo makes sense. You can do these really nasty pulls, and
So what are these bridges for?
yeah, exactly. Isn't that what they're for? Interesting thoughts. Thank you for sharing that. Let's move on. So 992 GT3 and Targa are to release. We talked about the Targa on a prior episode, but the interesting thing that we didn't talk about is the 992 GT3. They're actually set to be released officially, I think, together,
Are they?
which is going to be kind of interesting
So-
because usually they don't release a GT car that early.
That's what I found weird. Well, they're going to release it together. Are they going to do another virtual?
I think
release?
so. I think so.
Okay.
I think that's the goal. I think it's interesting too. Well, think about how long the test mule GT3 has been around as far as spy shots.
Wow.
So they've been trying to get that car, I think, out to market, out ready to go for the populace and things like that. Again, for those people who aren't sure what the car is as far as motor goes, it is NA. It is not a turbo car. I know people are like, it's definitely not NA. It's an NA car, trust me. I'll eat crow if I'm wrong on that, but trust me, it's an NA car.
First words of this press release, you think it's an A, but it's not. No.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, clickbait. No. So it should be coming out any day. It'd be interesting to see that. Obviously, it's no news until it actually comes out, but still the last spy shot of it still had the swan neck rear spoiler on it. So we'll see if it actually makes it to production. I think it will. The thing I wanted to bring up before we go to break on this particular car is I know that a big bugaboo for Porsche has been in the GT car market recently. And we got to see it in the 991 with the GT3 RS. I feel like they made a crap ton of them, and you can see them on the secondhand used market as we speak. And Porsche kind of put their money where their mouth was, is saying they were going to make more. They haven't said anything about the GT3 as far as the allocation amounts and what the production numbers are going to be on. But do you feel like they're going to stick by their guns and try to pump a lot of these out to try to like?
They're on their way. I mean, because it's not going to look any body style wise. It's not really any different.
Yeah, I just meant from like to try to deter brokers. Remember, we went through that whole like $50,000
That's what I'm saying. Like,
crap and all that stuff.
I think they can. I think they have the ability to. Is what I'm saying. Like,
okay,
production-wise,
because of the body is what you're
they
going.
Can scale,
okay, what you're going with.
Yeah,
okay.
they can scale so much easier now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you're right. Because of the bodies are the same, so they could bump a lot of them.
Yeah,
out.
you can be anything you want it to be.
I mean, they put their own cap on those cars. They could be any of those generations. They could have made more of if they wanted to. What I guess I'm getting at is, do you feel?
I think the RS lineup they might.
Yeah. Do you feel that they will make more of them because they don't want to keep getting into this? Oh, I didn't get an allocation. Oh, I didn't get this. I mean, they still want to cap the cars. I think they're not open to as many as you want to sell. But again, would that be a bad thing if they didn't put a cap on it, though? Do you think it would pretty much make all the naysayers go?
I don't know. I think
would it make it less special?
I think there would be just as many sold, whether there was a cap or no cap. You know what I mean? Because I doubt there's going to be double the amount of GT3 sold because there's no cap on them.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it has the reverse effect. I think if you put any kind of cap, I think you guarantee you're going to sell every single one of them, is what I think.
Yeah, exactly, because you have the mindset of scarcity. And
exactly. Which I don't like. I think maybe they should just go for that, because I think, and I would be one of this, I would be just as guilty if I was in that class. And there's very few people that are buying them for the right reasons, if there is a right reason. And you know, that's a very loose term that I'm using, the right reason. But I think the general idea behind this car originally, and openly admitted by Porsche and their developmental engineering department, was this car for the racer, like the enthusiast guy who goes to the track.
I think it's kind of stuck in the middle, though. I mean, because I think it's...
Well, I think it's wavered pretty far from that now, where we've gotten to this, where people are picking special paints, special insides, everything's super pretty. The car never sees the track, even though it's a GT car. And I get it. I'm not saying it has to be a track ride. I'm just as guilty. I would buy one because they look great. They make a great engine note. I would drive it spiritedly on the street. I am in that camp. I'm just as guilty as that, because I'm not some track rat. But there are guys that are track rats that track the shit out of their GT3s.
We know.
And good for them.
Voodoo blue one.
Yeah, exactly. And it's great for them. And I actually envy that they're using the car the right way. That's awesome that they're doing that. But that's not reality. Majority of the people that are buying the stock of this car are not hitting the track with them.
Well, I mean, and it's all the more reason, I think, not to really cap those. I can see them putting a cap on the RSs.
Yeah.
Just that's the bread and butter. I mean, anything 3RS, 2RS, that's where there needs to be a cap, because that's already special.
Do you think because, I mean, obviously Porsche's in tune with their purchasing market, that they shifted their idea behind that car as a whole, that GT car, the GT3, because when they first were pitching that car, that's what it was. It's like, oh, hey, we want you to pay this money for less car, essentially. Yep. They still have that business model behind it, but they're obviously very well in tune with the people that are buying these cars and what they're doing with them. And, you know, what they added, the PTS and all this CCX and all the stuff, you can get into the weeds with these cars if you really want to. They're really catering to that market, don't you think?
Yeah. I agree. I mean, they're like the exclusive option,
exactly,
without them being, having to go there.
Because they saw what's really happening to these cars. And we've seen them in interviews, and we've talked to a lot of Porsche execs, you know, off camera and offline, where it really, the guys who work there, it pains them to what that's really become, to be completely blunt. Where they're like, yeah, this guy buys a car and then it never goes anywhere. It's like, that car should be lapping tracks. It should be getting paint chips all over it. It should be rock chips all over it.
But not all. But I mean, that's just some people like the appeal of that style car, and that's what they're going to do.
I love the appeal, and like I said, I threw myself on the sword. I would be just as guilty. I would drive it around just for fun, spirited drives, and I love the way they look. I love the way they sound, and I think that's kind of where that majority of the populace is kind of taking that car, where there's like, yeah, it's great, it's a GT3, it's great.
It's almost a grand touring car. I mean, like not that it is, but I don't know. For me, the way that, in my mind, the way that it lines up after it goes turbo, GT3, it's almost kind of like, it's a GT car, but it's almost like not as hardcore as it could be.
Yeah, I almost feel like there's that part of Porsche where, obviously, within any kind of, like, if you own a Porsche, you're a Porsche, you're part of the Porsche club. And then, just like any type of club, there's always like another level. Yeah,
well, it's like I bought a road bike. I ride my road bike around. I feel pretty cool, but I haven't got to the spandex helmet. And everything else. Like, I haven't.
Yeah, you don't have the livery suit yet.
Yeah. I'm not Lance Armstronging it up. Around the neighborhood.
Exactly.
Yet.
Exactly.
But I could be.
Exactly. It's a good point. And I feel like there's kind of almost, and other Porsche guys can relate to this, and they know exactly what I'm talking about when I say this. You know, you have your 911, whatever it may be, run of the mill, or not even 911, whatever. It doesn't matter. Say you have any kind of Porsche, Cayman, doesn't matter, Boxster. You're part of the Porsche club. You're in the family. We get it. But then there's almost kind of like this other club of guys where, and this goes for the air-cooled area too, and you know what I'm talking about. Like, you know, you have all these outlaw backdated cars. You have all this, you know, the guys that drive these rallies and do all this stuff.
Yeah,
there's
you have subcultures within the subculture.
Exactly, and that's where I was going with that. So you have your turbo and your GT car guys that are kind of like up at that like VIP room, and those are those guys, you know. And then there's the other guys, you know. So I make levels of club membership, even though it's not designated that way. It's kind of like that, right? You know exactly what
Everybody
I'm talking about.
gathers
You and I
together.
have been to so many events where these guys are huddling together, right? Like all the GT3 guys are over there, the turbo guys are over there.
It's just a likeness. You're like, okay, that guy's like me.
Exactly. He's like, oh, he likes turbos. I like turbos.
It's tribe.
Oh yeah, it's all GT3 stuff. But it's interesting. I'm excited to see the reveal. Circling back to close out on that topic, I hope they make a lot of them. I'm over the whole $50,000 markup type stuff. Not that I'm a buyer in that market, but that also reflects on any type of consumership where people are consuming those cars and then they're paying the markup and then they try to resell because they paid a markup. So it affects everybody.
And you'll see how that market adjusts too, because there was a demand, whether it's made up or not, synthetic or not. Then you'll see if that's actually still a demand afterwards, if they continue to make as many cars as possible.
Exactly.
So they'll know.
Yeah. Just because you're first to market, everybody wants the new right away. Yeah. And then after that wears off, then what's the deal? We'll see what happens. But let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back with some interesting 944 talk, and then a Porsche 984 concept.
Make sure that you check out Soul Performance Products because they are a sponsor of PCAR Talk. They have a great exhaust. We're running it on the Turbo S. It's handmade. It's made in the U.S., made by Americans, sold to everybody else in the world. So very few products are still made in the U.S., and they make exhaust products for every vehicle that you can think of, not just Porsche. So please check them out. They're a great sponsor of the show. We love their products. A lot of other people that we respect as well is running their products on their car, and they're battle tested. They're race proven. If you're looking for a solid quality American product, definitely check out Soul Performance Exhaust.
All right, we are back from break. So, a couple things to talk about. 944 S2.
Yep.
1990 for sale.
Okay.
Catch with this car, it's been garaged in a climate control environment for 27 years.
Okay. So we're looking at best of the best here.
Yeah. Only has 2,000 miles on it, and they went $58K for it. Do you feel that is too much? Is that super strong money?
I think it is. Turbos are not that strong.
No.
Turbos are probably in the 40s.
But how many
now.
2,000 mile 944s exist, right?
That's true. Maybe they think they can demand this. Maybe they can get it from somebody. I mean, I would think I would look at the.
So let's
okay.
Not to cut you off, but let's start like from the top here. Is this even a collectible car? Just because it's low mileage?
It's an S2.
Yeah, but
3 liter versus a 2.5, so you get a little bit power bump.
Okay.
But
how many, we know some collectors, do you ever hear any of them saying like, I'm searching like a really low mile 944?
No, everybody's trying to find turbo.
Exactly. Or the Turbo S.
Yeah, the Turbo S. Probably more likely Turbo S. If it's really a collector.
So I'm not saying this car's not worthy. I just want to talk about the topic for a little bit to see
if it sells. What's your
theory on this? I think it's strong money. Like just because you parked it for 27 years, I actually think it's more of a shame that you should have driven the thing. Yeah. I mean, that's what they were made to do, is drive. These were never meant to be collectible.
But it didn't say if this person was a collector or not.
It didn't. But if you have a climate-controlled garage that it lived in for that duration of time, you're probably a collector of some sort, right?
Maybe you had a second 944 S2 that he drove daily.
I don't think they're that great. I mean,
no,
not to take anything away.
Not
to take anything away from a 944. I think they're fun cars and all, but I don't think this is. And what I mean by this is there's so many cars within the Porsche lineup that are collectible cars to go chase after. I don't think this makes a top 25 in anybody's list. From a collectible level. I'm just talking about if you're a pure collector, like if you're a blue chip collector that you collect low mile cars, museum pieces, I don't even see this being in a top 25 of that.
I mean, maybe Magnus goes after this thing.
Magnus ain't paying that kind of money for this.
I mean, just because he wants the whole collection. I mean, maybe if you're one that you're trying to get one of everything, maybe this is the one you go.
I can maybe see that.
Maybe if you have
see that.
Some affinity for like, I want everything 80s.
Yeah.
And I'm on my 944 kick, and the S2's next up.
But I'm talking about like blue chip guys that have blue chip money.
Yeah.
And maybe they're outfitting a garage, and it doesn't even have to be the quantity. I'm talking about quality. Maybe they're only buying 10 Porsches. this is just because it's 2,000 miles, a 944 is not even on the radar. Like, we've talked to Ray about it. If you're buying a 944, why don't you buy one of the 13 club sports that were made?
Yeah.
Even though they're being raced and beat up or whatever they're doing,
they can't
like, that has more provenance than something that was a 944 1990 S2 that sat in a garage because it only has 2,000 miles on it. I mean, I hate to compare it to something that's very mundane, but they made a lot of them. I mean, they didn't make a lot of S2s, don't get me wrong. But in general, just 944s, I don't know, man. That's almost saying, like, okay, I got a first gen.
What color was it? Was it guards red on black?
No, I think it was Baltic blue.
See, there's something there. I mean,
yeah. I don't know. I just don't. I think that's a heavy duty price. But again, on the play devil's advocate here is find another one.
Yeah.
Find me another one. It's got 2,000 miles on it. That isn't a bucket. I mean, basically sat inside of a showroom. Now, on the flip side of it, as you and I know, but maybe people listening it don't know, whoever buys this car is not going to drive it. So if you sit there and it's like, oh, well, every seal is not going to work. You know, this whole car is going to need to be go through. It doesn't matter. Like, it's not going to be driven. Yeah. It's going to sit and collect dust somewhere else, and probably not even dust, because it's probably wherever their collection's at. It's, you know, hypoallergenic, air purified air that's going into this place, and some super expensive vacuum, whatever.
Well, it's not white, so we know it's not going
to
the one white collection. So
I just found this to be interesting there. That's the reason why I bring this up. I know you are a past 944 owner, so you can speak to more of this than I can.
I mean, S2, yes. I mean, that's what you'd want to go for, so you don't have any turbo issues.
Yeah.
But
do you think this is a waste of 27 years?
It's a lot of. I mean, that's
a lot of sitting.
Yeah.
Just to try to sell something for $58,000.
I don't see it.
I don't think the equation like equals the money.
Yeah, I don't think that is
sitting.
It's not ROI positive for sure. It's
the space that car took for that amount of time.
Yeah, I don't see it being a thing.
Yeah. You let us know, you 944 fans. Would you go nuts on this? I think, and again, this isn't.
What would you spend on it? That'd be great. More question.
And it's not even. And it's funny to say this because we're not a buyer for this car. Not that we couldn't afford it, but this kind of car has to go to somebody who just $58,000 is like buying a candy bar, because that's, I think, the only person who would be really interested in it is like somebody that's uber wealthy. Because anybody else who's sensible that can afford $58,000 is going to look at this and say, "I'm ready to go spend $58,000 on, you know, a clapped out 996 GT3 or a really nice 996 turbo or something like that, or a nice Carrera, or anything else, fill in the blank, other than this."
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other options, unless you were like just struck and you're like, 16 Candles, that's the movie for me.
I guess.
I gotta get a 944, and then Best 2 came up.
Yeah, I don't know. Interesting. Nevertheless, I just thought it was a blip on the radar that I thought was kind of an outlier, and every once in a while some random crap like this comes up. Let's segue to Porsche 984 Concept.
Yep.
I didn't even know what this really was. I had to do some research on this. I'm sure most people listening probably don't know what this is, so that there's going to be kind of a information session in addition to some theories and thoughts behind this car. So it's kind of cool. So this is a mid-engine concept car. Yep. It was due to be released in the late 80s. It was supposed to kind of pick up where the 914 left off.
It's like 84 to 87 or something like that.
Yeah. I think the target was to kind of come out in like 88 or 89 with this thing actually to the public. So what it is, it's a mid-engine car. If you can imagine, if there's a stopgap between the Boxster and the 914, this is what this 984 was supposed to be. It's a 2-liter flat 4 with about 150 horsepower, mated to a 5-speed transmission. Pop-up headlights.
It has a good combo of things so far.
Yeah, and I think the best combo about this car is it only weighed in at 1,940 pounds.
Oh, so we're talking like Miata light then.
Ultra lightweight, yeah. And mid-engine 150 horsepower car in the late 80s. So this was supposed to basically carry the torch for the mid-engine lightweight car for Porsche. It's a pretty cool car. You should look it up on the internet when you have a chance. Again, that's Porsche 984 Concept. Where I'm going with this is I think it's pretty interesting. The reason why it didn't come out is October 19th happened, 1987, which is Black Monday.
Black Monday, yeah.
devastating to a lot of financial institutions, as well as a lot of companies. So this car was supposed to debut 2 years later. Obviously, it got pulled.
Kind of, yeah. All new projects or concepts.
Yeah, pretty much.
out.
Yeah, put on hold because it's an oh shit mode and let's save the company. So
I mean, if it did get made, do you think we'd have the Boxer and the Cayman just the way it looks? I mean, looks like a hard top, a splitting hard top, folding.
I think we would have,
retractable.
because it's funny you say that, because they used a lot of design cues from this car. Ironically, 10 years later, 9 years later, to produce the Boxster in '98. So they stole a lot of stuff off of this concept, design theory, to produce the Boxster, since the Boxster obviously wasn't out yet and there was no gap between the 914. So they basically, this car is where they kind of basically rejuvenated it and kind of put this into production to try to help the company. So what I wanted to talk about this car for a brief moment about, what I thought it was pretty interesting, is how do you think this car would have been received minus what happened obviously in '87? Say everything was flowing, we didn't go into like Black Monday, we didn't have that huge stock market like crash. Everything's flowing, everything's good to go. It looks super '80s, the car does.
No, 100%.
I think it probably would have did pretty good, don't you think?
Yeah, it does look good. It still has the same body cues that the 944 convertible has. Honestly, like for most of it, it's like 944, 968 intertwined, but then all of a sudden they're like, well, what if we made it a little bit more round? Like you can see where they're about to hit the 90s, and they're starting to get a lot more softer body lines and getting away from being more squared.
Yeah. I think this car would have done well for sales. I think it still would have been plagued by the same thing that the 914 currently, I'll still say currently, stereotype, and the Boxster stereotype, that they're lesser Porsches, which they aren't. I'm just saying that's the stereotype. I don't believe that. I think they're great cars. However, I think it would have been lumped into that because it would have been the predecessor to the 914. However, I don't think that would have affected sales. I'm just saying the Porsche purist would have looked down on this car.
I think you're right.
Along with all of those cars, because they're just snobs.
Well, I mean, if you look at the concept, you'll see that that's the 85.5 interior for the 944 in it. So again, it's 944 stuff. So you're not quite 911 yet.
Yeah.
So
but this was supposed to be the economy Porsche,
so
essentially. So again, back to the income base, I guess maybe people are like, well, you bought the cheap Porsche. And it's like, come on, man, it's still a Porsche, dude, and it's mid-engine, and it's super cool, and it's super light, and
it's an interesting looking car, like from it being so square everywhere else for how round the top is.
Yeah, think about the times too. A lot of the people that were buying probably brand new Porsches in the 80s. Granted, I was very young in the 80s, so I can't speak to it, but I'm just imagining it. And even to this day, new buyers, it's more of a status symbol. You hear rappers talking about Porsche. You hear other people talking about Porsche, like purchasing a Porsche. And when they talk about Porsche, they're not talking about buying an air-cooled Porsche. They're talking about buying the brand new turbo. And same thing in the 80s when those guys bought the 930, the 911s, and all those like newer cars. It was more of a status symbol than more of kind of driver like fun. It was more of kind of like, I have a Porsche.
That's right. The movie Wall Street. He's like, hey, did you hear about this guy? Porsche Turbo Cabriolet, $75,000. That's for some reason that sparked that in my mind.
But the reason why it sparks that in your mind is because even the fact that they brought that up
back in the 80s.
Yeah, and it was a status symbol. It was more of kind of not like I drive a Porsche because I like the dynamic of it. I buy a Porsche because I wear Versace suits, like that kind of stuff. It was a sign of the times.
You don't have to describe Kevin.
Yeah, exactly. But I think, unfortunately, these cars, for a lot of the reasons, and I, even though I don't own a Boxster, I get pissed at people saying that they're crap cars, but they're great cars. They're, they're not for everybody, but just I hate the stereotypes that go along with these cars.
Driving the new ones, I mean, they're everything a sports car needs to be.
Yeah, and I think honestly, as much as I shun the Porsche community itself for the upper echelons that frown on them, I think a lot of people have come around of brand shaming within the brand that's kind of slowing down a bit. Like a lot of
I
people
think
are
that has to
starting
do with the design though. Like they really have changed it. I think if design still stayed the way it was, I don't know if it's community or culture driven, but I think since it's changed,
yeah,
I think they're a little bit more accepted.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think as a society, I think a lot of people have gotten to the point where they stand up for themselves now, as opposed to like back in the day, people would just let people pick on them.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is like if I was a Boxster owner and you didn't like me because you were a 911 owner and you made fun of my car or goffed at me or whatever, I think before like I would just take it. But I think nowadays people are like, fuck you, man. Like, I don't care if you like my car or not. Like, it's awesome and I love it. I think people are just more stand their ground.
More content.
Yeah, they stand their ground now, as opposed to maybe back in the day, let people like eat them up a little bit more. And good for you for standing up for yourself, and you should. Yeah, I think they're great cars, and I think this would have been a great car because you think about the recipe that I spouted out: flat four, 150 horsepower, 5-speed, pop-up headlights, and it weighs under 2,000 pounds. I mean, this would have been a killer. I wish this car did get developed because
They're
you probably
talking
get
about
these.
probably even a better handling 944.
Yeah, you could probably get these secondhand for like nothing.
Yeah.
Or I mean, obviously, it'd be a lot
No,
more than
they'd
secondhand now,
skyrocket.
but yeah,
Limited edition.
like PTS, whatever. You know, it's like all these kind of 911 engines in them, and
It's a crazy concept that they already had that shape, this same Boxster style roof line thought about in the mid 80s.
well, I mean, you think about like some of their first cars, right? They were small cars. They were small displacement, 356 Gamoons. Like all of those cars are very, very small displacement cars. These cars are small displacement cars, excuse me. And the whole recipe behind that is get as much horsepower out as that small displacement as you can, but make the car as light as possible too. And that's really where Porsche was bred on, were these little cars. You know, these pre-911 cars. That's really what Porsche was really, really about. So if you think about it, these cars actually have more roots back to some of those cars than even the 911 does.
Yeah.
Because that was the beginning of the time for them, for what the racing in the 50s and when they first were starting to go. These cars weren't have a ton of power. They were slipstream, they were crazy light, and they won races because they were lighter than everything else. Yeah, so look that up, guys. I think it was an interesting thing to bring up. But I think the irony behind that is it gave birth to the Boxster, you know, even though it still found its way into, basically production, even though it was a concept back in the 80s, it still made it out.
And if you haven't seen the Boxster concept, look that up too.
Yeah.
Look that after. The Boxster concept, like if they would made that into a normal car,
So
that thing
good.
would have been
Okay.
crushed.
Let's touch on that for a few minutes before we move on. Boxster concept, if you guys haven't seen it, we both seen it. Obviously, great looking car. It's beautiful. Do you think that car would be frowned upon as much as if it was made just like that concept?
No, because I think I felt like it had such higher end touches. Like they really
It's
made
a lot more aggressive looking, right? Like I think it would be hard pressed for somebody to say that's a hairdresser's car or whatever the stereotype they want to poke fun at that car, because it is cool or as retro, depending on the phrasing you want to use, as maybe an early speedster.
That's exactly the concept they were going for, was back to the speedster with that car, and they would have nailed it. I mean, out of the park for sure. Had they brought that, I mean, the vents had like the little propellers and stuff like that, and the different touches that it had in there.
The pencil pushers got involved and chopped that car
leathers
apart.
they used.
Yeah,
it looked really.
I mean,
good.
if they would have let them make that car, it'd probably be an icon.
Oh yeah.
On its own, as opposed to like being made fun of. Unfortunately, again, business gets involved, and sometimes they cut all the stuff out and then they put all the stuff, it doesn't look cool. I'm sure that must have killed all the design engineers when they were like, nope, we're going to do this, and they're like, oh my God, you just taken a beautiful thing and destroyed it.
Well, there it is, Bob.
Yeah. And honestly, like first gen Boxsters now, honestly, I think look pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like I think they kind of look timeless in their own way. You know, you would ask me that 10 years ago, I've been like, eh. But now, as design cues start to change and optically you see different cars, and now you look back at that car and you turn the page back and you're like, yeah, that's pretty good classic design.
Center exhaust, that type of thing. Yeah.
Had some good ideas behind it.
6-cylinder on a 4-cylinder. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Someday that might be a sneaky pick too. I'm telling people now. I mean, shit, that you could pick one up for 10, 11 grand, a nice one. You should do it. Why not? Who cares what anybody thinks, right?
Yep.
All right.
Might just get one.
Yeah. Next on the docket. Hey, I mean,
Third one.
honestly, for the money, I really don't know another good car to buy other than that. I mean, for a fun toy, I mean, you obviously don't want that to be your only car. Like, you want a daily, but I mean, really, anywhere between 10 and 15 grand, you pick one of those up, put a little bit of mods on that thing, and do an IMS, and away you go, having a great time with the top down.
Just be careful on track, though.
No, I wouldn't track that car.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you did the dry sump, changeover, all that kind of
And
stuff.
you got to do that.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, it's bad news.
But I'm just talking about a weekend fun car.
Yeah.
Why not buy that? Miata's not always the answer. Boxster can be the answer too.
Because the Boxer's a lot nicer inside.
Yeah, and it's faster.
Yeah.
So, all right. So before we close, you just want to thank everybody. Aaron told me the other day that we're in 84 countries now.
Yeah, that's the word.
Wow. Thank you guys so much. Obviously, North America is our home.
Yep.
We want to thank all of our loyal listeners that reach out to us and engage with us and listen at home, but everybody else all across the world too. I know you guys don't get enough shout outs, and we want to thank you guys so much for taking the time to put us on and download the episode and share it and do what all the things that you are helping us grow. It's super humbling and flattering that you guys are doing that for us.
That's crazy.
And
countries I can pronounce, countries I can't.
yeah,
So.
you guys are the reason why we do this, man. To be honest with you, totally love bringing you the stuff that we bring you and talking to the folks that we're talking to you with and bringing on the show. We are going to have some guests coming on. Obviously we were in COVID, but as doors start to open up and facilities, we're going to start getting back in there for you guys, and there will be guests coming back on the show. We're in the works and talking to people as we speak right now to line up dates for that. So more to follow on that. I know it's been Aaron and us heavy recently, but it is what it is. At least you're getting a new episode every week, and hopefully we can bring you some more guests during the summer. Again, just bear with us on that end because we have to schedule them and also be respectful of when they're ready to have us as well, right?
That's true.
So it's not just us. We want to be in these places and get you guys the stories, but some of these folks, let's be honest, some of them are elderly, and we want to be respectful of their space as well. When they feel comfortable to have us in, we can have them in, and vice versa. So we appreciate you guys sticking with us, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
That's it. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of P-Car Talk. Connect with us on Instagram at P-Car Talk or online at pcartalk.com.